So, Tony, over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone. I'm pleased to have found a way of connecting, and the talk is very much about connection and mindful connection. So I'm also here with Tamara. You can see her here.
Hi guys, good afternoon everybody.
And Tamara is founder of Mindfulness Centre of Excellence, of which I'm now also a co-director. And I'm also a research associate at Cardiff Metropolitan University and been working on the FOVO technology there. So we're talking today about immersive content for mindful connection. And we at the Mindfulness Centre of Excellence, we like to start with a mindful transitional pause. So that's what we'll do to start. So if everyone listening now is just want to get comfortable in your chair or wherever you are in your room, and just perhaps tune in to the impact of the previous talk, if you were listening to the previous talk, or whatever else you've been doing this afternoon during your day. And as you do that, you might want to just gently roll the shoulders, just a gentle shoulder roll, a little bit of movement in the body, and really tuning in to the impact, not just in your mind of everything you've been listening to, but what impact that's had on your body. So coming into presence now, and really kind of getting a sense of your body in the chair or whatever position that you're in. And now with this image that's come up on screen, bringing your attention to the center of the image, to the mountains in the background there. And bringing quite a narrow, focused attention. Looking at the top of that mountain there, the clouds swirling around. We're quite a sharp, focused attention now on that top of the mountain, or you might want to just start to open out, bringing into your focus those trees there on the side of the hills. And now, opening the awareness, opening out further, getting a sense of those flowers, the wildflowers in the meadow there. And now at the periphery of the image, the trees. So that you're bringing into your awareness now the whole image. And now widening further beyond the image to the sides of the computer screen, and then beyond the screen into the room. Really starting to sense now what's in the periphery of your awareness, both vertically and horizontally. And as you do that, really getting a sense of your own body in your awareness. The exterior of your body and what's happening internally in your body. Maybe you can sense your heart beating. And then sensing into the breath, moving in and out of the body. And really tuning into any sensation of your feet on the floor, sense of groundedness in the body. And then to finish, you might just want to take a couple of deep breaths, breathing in and breathing out. So this transitional pause really helps us to transition from what's happened in the past to what's happened in the future, and in the middle we're present. And these up on your screen now are, well, one is a definition of mindfulness from Jon Kabat-Zinn, the awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So it's this awareness, this sense of wider perspective that we get if we're actually really present and paying attention, non-judgmentally, so with kindness. And then the second quote from him is I did that in because it's really talking about this wise attention, this care and attention. If we can bring it to the information that's around us, to the information that we consume, if we can discern it and find connectedness in it, then we can really put it to use in the service of our own health and healing, first of all, our individual health. And if we can do that and get that sense of mindful connection to ourselves, connection between our mind and our body, then from there we can go to the collective. Once we're integrated ourselves, we can then connect to others, and then also connect to our environment, the planet, and so on. So it's this sense of integration and connection that's so important, especially when so much around us is divided, particularly at the current time. This image here reflects this in terms of our divided brain. The left hemisphere is very much quite dominant in our society today, and technology is part of the reason for that. But this creativity and this compassion and this sense of this real feeling, and our sense of being able to relate, which is more in the right hemisphere, is something that we need to emphasize more and more in order to heal and to integrate. So we're going to look at today at sort of what role immersive technologies, immersive content can have to play here, and particularly in kind of fostering this creativity and compassion. What often happens is rather than connect, it can distract. This goes back down. A lot of this is to do with the intention behind what's been created, which we'll talk about in a bit. But this example here is from Otherworld, which is it's called here Portal to Another World, and certainly virtual reality is something that is quite effective at taking us into somewhere else. It's kind of this form of escape, or it can be this form of escape or distraction from our reality. But virtual reality has also been effectively used in a kind of clinical and therapeutic context as a distraction, a deliberate distraction, an intentional distraction, particularly for relieving pain. And it's also been proven to be effective as an exposure therapy for the treatment of PTSD, phobias, and anxiety. When administered by a trained therapist, and that's a key thing in terms of whether or not that actually happens. But the question is where the intention is to connect rather than distract. How successful have these immersive technologies and this immersive content been? One example is actually the Grenfell disaster. There was a project to use VR with some of the survivors of that disaster, and it was used very effectively as a way of opening up a lot of the survivors or introducing them to therapy that they wouldn't otherwise have had access to. And it's an example of how the technology is a tool. It's like a gateway into further connection, further relation. But the extent to which the technology itself is actually able to connect is questionable. These are two examples of applications. They're mindfulness applications that have been quite successful in doing that, and they are examples that they have been shown to reduce anxiety, for instance. One of the reasons why they've been successful is that they have connected the mind and the body. Deep VR uses a belt, a breathing belt that monitors your breathing, and so it gives a form of biofeedback that then changes what you see in this kind of ocean scene, and you move up and down this kind of aquatic scene. Helium uses a slightly different technology. It's based more on EEG feedback, but a similar thing in terms of how it's been successful. But there are these challenges with these kind of virtual and mixed environments. Do they actually really kind of connect us to ourselves or distract us away? One of the reasons it is challenging is the nature of the environment, the limited field of view when compared to our more natural visual system, the disconnect from the body not being included within the content. Social isolation is a huge thing today. It's not necessarily solved with this particular medium because of the sense of confinement from it. And then this importance of social engagement. VR tends to be quite a solitary medium, so it's not the immersion tends not to be shared. And it's just, again, the sense of perspective, this broader perspective, the sense that it can really open us out to this broader perspective is questionable. I'm going to hand over to Tamara now. We're talking more about this whole system approach, and where we particularly are looking at not just what happens in the experience, what happens before and what happens after.
Thank you very much. And just really briefly speaking about a whole systems approach to design of VR and XR, really with the intention to provoke some thinking about whether you are offering a mind-blowing experience or something that can be a bit more meaningful and long-lasting. And particularly taking this opportunity to suggest that absolutely there are some incredible experiences out there, and some of them we offer in experiences and workshops. But if we're thinking about well-being and lasting transformation, then there's an invitation to think broader and deeper about what's happening at the neurocognitive level when we begin to alter and play with this neural architecture that is so delicate and sensitive. And absolutely, we can really create stunning experiences that capture our attention. They feel very, very real. But there's still some thinking to be done about what actually is the mechanism when we begin to go into the brain and particularly thinking about who's designing it, what their intentions are, and how this sits inside a tech industry that also has a little bit of a problematic track record when it comes to taking care of its users. So that's our intention really with the Mindful 360 design process. It's a broader and a deeper look at the whole system of development, design, intentions, as well as what's actually happening in the headset with the environments that are being created, with an overarching view to take calculated risks, to look at new innovation and think about how we can help people at scale without unintended consequences that may need a bit more thinking through. And the reality is we don't really have the data yet about unintended consequences and adverse effects with some of this technology, even though the promise is really there and is really massive. And so we work with a neurocognitive framework. It comes from the mindfulness literature, but it's also very much being discussed now within the psychiatric and the psychological literature, because it speaks to three key brain networks that are involved in how we perceive the world, our creativity, our imagination, our memory systems, what we call our salience network, the thing that activates us when something captures our attention, and really is the three key networks that organize all of our experience. And so when we're thinking about a Mindful 360 design, we're looking at what's in the headset and how it's being designed in terms of probing these different networks. Which type of attention? Where is the attention being directed? What is the quality of the attention and the depth of the experience, including the embodied depth of the experience as the person is going through? Perhaps it's a narrative, or perhaps it's a meditation or a mindfulness exercise. We're really interested in how it taps into the space of the imagination. Absolutely, it grabs the mind very, very strongly. But these are super sensitive networks. The default mode network particularly is our sense of self-reference, it's our memory system, it's our creativity, our imagination. And it's a very delicate piece of neural architecture that's highly malleable. And it may well be that the person has a very deep and intense experience, but what happens next? And particularly what happens next, either if it is very embodied or perhaps it isn't very embodied. And these are the sorts of questions that we ask. We're also fundamentally asking questions about what is embodiment, because I see this term used quite widely, particularly within the VR and the immersive tech industries. But to be clear, philosophers, cognitive scientists, the mindfulness and contemplative traditions are still arguing about what this very complex term really even means. And there's a lot of unknowns there. It seems it's very important, but we don't actually really have a great handle on that from a mechanism point of view. And that's important when we're thinking about trauma and using these tools for people who are in traumatized states or disembodied states. And that's much of our younger generation. Thomas Hübel's work, of course, speaks to the trauma of the digital natives and how their brain systems may be fundamentally designed in different ways as a result of growing up with technology. And we're also interested in what's the state of the brain when the individual goes into these experiences. And this is where the context of the delivery and the experience of the person who's offering the XR or the VR experience may become relevant. The brain may be in a threat state, in which case all the neural architecture is functioning in a different way to when we're in a drive state, when we're focused and interested in performance and productivity. And that's very different to when we're in this green mode here. This is adapted from Professor Paul Gilbert's work, the green mode, when we're feeling calm, relaxed and open. And some of Tony's exercise earlier invited us to kind of widen the aperture of our lens of attention, particularly using nature as a way to tap into that green mode. So it's just a little very quick light taste here of some of the concepts and the ideas that are included in this. Not really time to go into all of this, and we're keen to connect with people who want to know more. But we understand and recognize that there's a highly technical focus on, you know, what we're doing and what's going on in the headset, but we want to broaden that discussion to think about how we're doing it, the mechanisms, who's doing it, and why they're doing it. And we know that when we're working with consciousness and transformation, which seems to be what we're doing with these techniques, that the why and the intentionality is a core part of the experience, as is the embodiment of the facilitator, or in this case, perhaps the designer. So we have a Mindful 360 process that talks people through a thinking checklist around the people, the process, the product, the implications for the planet as well, because nature is at the table when we're designing and thinking about these things, in our view. It draws on a neuroscientific model to keep us grounded in theoretical science, and has psychological safety, intentionality, and ethics at the core of its thinking. And we'd be happy to chat to people about some of the case studies and the dialogues that we've been having as we've been talking to different designers and developers in this process. So I'll hand back to Tony to just finish off.
Thanks. Yeah, so this you'll recognize this this image from the transitional pause at the start. So you may have thought this is just a conventional photograph. This actually was an image created using the FOVO technology. So that there's actually a field of view here of 150 degrees, which is not far off the natural field of view that we have in the human visual system. So it incorporates this kind of whole view, this much wider view, and to show you the difference between what is a linear perspective view of that same view, you can see the difference. So that's also at 150 degrees, but because it's a linear perspective, you get this distortion. Everything looks further away. And so what I'm looking at is how this technology is a way of helping us kind of connect more to what we see, so that we are more in that sense of being in the world and grounded and present. Another example here is just, as you can see on the right, how the conversion's been made from linear perspective in this image at 140 degrees to FOVO here, where the same information is in the image, but it's in a much more natural way to more accurately reflect what we would see if we were actually there. And in terms of being actually there, there's just finishing with these images here, which are actually taken from the farm, which is where we Tamara and I both are now. These beautiful views of the countryside. This was taken with my iPhone, so this is actually only 75 degrees field of view. So it's actually, although you get a sense of the view, it's actually excluding this peripheral information, what's in our peripheral vision. The same with these images. But the plan is to start doing retreats here. So we bring people into nature, get people to reconnect with the natural world and sense of presence and so on. And then using the FOVO technology to kind of follow up with that sense of being able to connect with nature, even without having to come to nature. So just rapidly at the end, just some conclusions at the end, but perhaps that top one highlighting that if with the right intention and with this more right brain creativity and care, we can use these tools to connect, to transform, to be more integrated, especially when we broaden the attention and broaden the awareness to this more kind of spacious and embodied perspective. And Mindful 360 design, it offers this more systemic perspective that covers the whole system, the body, the brain, the mind, and these kind of more social orientations. And all in all, that leads to a more integrative approach that's much more preventative, essentially. So, thank you.
Thank you for a brilliant presentation, Tony and Tamara. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I just had to check. I'm not going to suggest we have a big discussion because we're you finished exactly on time, which I thank you for very much. I just want to check whether we've got our next speaker ready, Oliver.
Yes, we.
And we have. That is
So,
brilliant.
Terry, can I just ask a quick question, because we do have a few seconds, to both Tamara.
You can,
I
yes, you can.
thought it was a brilliant talk.
It was
Just
brilliant.
a quick one. Encouraging remoteness. I think a lot of the things that I'm really wary of, and I focus on what you were saying, Tony, about using FOVO to connect to nature without needing to be in nature. And obviously that is a form of encouraging remoteness, which I always think is a bit worrying because of the fact that we are completely lazy as creatures, and it's all about a button solution for everything. Get me a wife, get me a job. It's like how it could be the same with nature, right? So if we can create a virtual connection to nature that's much like we see it through photography, are we not in danger of creating that one button solution?
Yeah, well, I mean, the order is like, so what I was saying was that actually the idea is to get people to nature first, and then it's using the technology as more of a sort of top up, if you like. So because once you're in the real thing and you really see the benefits, but not just being in nature in a mindful way, so that your attention, you're really opening to that wide sensory experience of everything, and you can't beat nature for that. Nothing's ever going to replicate that.
Yeah, I mean,
but what it can do is once you've got that sort of shift in state of mind, you can then you can create a kind of reminder of that, if you like,
yeah,
by using these tools.
Yeah, I suppose the counter to that is that people that cannot, if they're unable to get to nature, they still then have that connection to it. So I think that in that sense, it's brilliant.
Thank you.
I agree.
Well done.
Brilliant.